Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter. Of course, you can subscribe to the channel. Let's Talk Boxing. Long-time subscribers will know what a massive fan of Josh Taylor's I am. I think he's a terrific fighter on the inside. I think he's elite at range. I think he's a very good boxer. Really good. I'm not quite sure he's elite at range. I've always said I feel his bread and butter's on the inside, but he's still very, very confident. And holistically, as a whole, terrific fighter. I thought he would win this and look really good, unless there was an issue with the knee or potentially even the weight. I felt, like I said in the preview, based on the gloves are off, that he did not want Jack Catterall to box. We'll get to that later because Jack Catterall did box, and we'll talk about some of the wealth of problems that he caused Josh Taylor. What I will say is, first and foremost, I thought this was one of the biggest robberies I've ever seen in my life. I don't see it as close at all. I had Josh Taylor winning rounds 7, 9, 10, and 12. Yes, the second and the third were swing rounds, so I guess you could say they were close. If they'd gone to Taylor, it becomes a lot closer. But there was a 10-8 round for Catterall. They both had a point deducted. So even if it's closer and you give the swing rounds to Josh, I can't see a way in which he wins the fight. Let's talk about the technical reasons as to why Jack Catterall put on a clinic and was schooling. Yes, that's right, schooling Josh Taylor at points. One of the things that really surprised me was Josh's inability to adjust. It took so long to adjust because the shot selection that he was employing was all wrong, even on the inside where he's an elite level fighter. And listen, he's got a terrific team behind him in Ben Davison and Lee Wiley, very scientific boxing minds. So, I'm not sure what went wrong here tonight, but for me, it took until the 7th round for Josh to make his first adjustment, which was necessary. And then the 9th and the 10th was the second adjustment, which was necessary. And this is what cost Josh Taylor the fight, in my humble opinion. You see, the southpaw versus southpaw thing caused him a big problem. And we saw, like I said, in the gloves are off, he didn't want Catterall to box. Now, I suspected it might have been because he's carrying a little niggle, a little injury. I didn't see any signs of that. I didn't see any signs of the weight being an issue either. A lot of people, myself included, felt that the weight was a concern. He looked dead at the weight. I don't think that decided the fight. But the angles did. The technical elements caused him a lot of problems. Because what Catterall did was lean his weight onto that back foot with quite a wide stance behind the shoulder. And what that did is lean back essentially and force Josh to come in. Now, Josh likes to throw this jab whereby he's flicking his arm up as he throws it. He'll come in and he flicks it high. And because Catterall came low, the trajectory of that up jab, which is almost like a backhand, was taken away from Josh on his entry point. The second problem that Josh had, which was a massive problem, this is where the adjustment should have happened, a really big adjustment. Josh likes to throw that left-hand uppercut. But because Catterall was behind that shoulder, it was being cut off. The angle was cut off. His chin was hidden. And the uppercut was coming from that side. He wasn't getting the angle right. What needed to happen, therefore, instead of throwing the uppercut, throw a wide hook over the top of that shoulder. It doesn't even have to be obvious. You can throw it from low so it's not wide, so he doesn't see it coming behind his shoulder until the last minute. But that would give Jack Catterall two choices. He'll either stand up tall and essentially take that shot, or he'll start to dip his head behind that shoulder. He could bring his hand up as well. Now, if he does any one of those things, what it does is it opens him up on the inside. So he's either dipping into the right hand of Josh Taylor, because then you could follow it up with a right hook or a right shovel hook or a right uppercut. In other words, he's dipping into that, or he's going to stay upright, protect himself with a higher guard from this side, which takes away his ability of his right hand, firstly, to work. Okay, he becomes more tied up with defense. And secondly, it opens him up because he's only going to have one hand to defend the entire inner face of his body, which is open to then attack that will come from Josh Taylor. Instead, for the first 6 rounds, Josh Taylor persisted in trying to find a home for that uppercut past that shoulder, almost like he was trying to come underneath the armpit. That was all wrong. Because what was happening, a lot of these shots were missing. He was getting lit up with the jab. And then when he was slipping inside to try and come inside and land something, he was having success on occasion, but usually he would be staying on the outside of that lead shoulder looking for that uppercut, and he'd end up smothering. Because what Catterall was very, very good at, apart from getting low, is when he'd get up on the ropes, he wouldn't lean back on the ropes. He'd stay low and then fall back on the ropes and quickly change the distance. So he might come back high and then come in low, or come in back low and then come in high. And by coming in high, he's almost rugby tackling with the shoulder. It was basically causing a connection, and that was making smothering happen. And this is a massive problem that Josh Taylor had. Now, in the 7th round, you saw that hook started to come rather than an uppercut from Josh Taylor over the shoulder. And that's the first round he won, in my humble opinion. Now, the second and the third were swing rounds, right? but I felt Catterall nicked them. From the 9th and the 10th round, the other adjustment we saw is that right hook. Is the left hook to the body. So apart from there, instead of looking for the uppercut to try and come in through the armpit to land on the chin, and instead of always looking for that left hook over the top of the shoulder, because now Catterall starts to adjust and turn, it also exposes the right-hand side of Catterall's body. And you started to see the left hook to the body followed by the right hook to the head from Josh Taylor. Great work. This is what you should have adjusted from the 3rd round, 4th round, not even the 4th. You should have seen it within the first 2 rounds, adjusted earlier and started to find a home for that shot. Instead, he also lowered the trajectory of his jab, which again was another adjustment that he should have been doing earlier. And he started to close the range. And I felt he won rounds 9, 10 and 12. So of the last 4 rounds, I felt he won 3 of the last 4. So the adjustment worked for Josh, but it was too little too late. And he was falling into a lot of his work. He was eating big shots. And one of the problems is a lot of his distance control, a lot of his entry point is to do with feinting, like I said, and then working his way inside. He's not really a guy to slip shots to come either side. So when he came up against a really crisp jab, although he's a brilliant boxer at range, Taylor, it was a guy who wasn't buying into his feinting, who was very economical really with his jabbing. And so Taylor, because he also changed that height dynamic and the shot was coming upwards, it was an up jab, Josh Taylor had a problem of then having to find a way past that jab, and he decided to lower his own level and try and come in lower. And so he was making little adjustments, but the shot selection was wrong. And Ben Davison at the end of the round 11, when Josh Taylor had a point deducted, at the end of that particular round, you heard Ben Davison say to Josh, you need a stoppage. You need a stoppage. They knew they weren't winning the fight. They knew he was back behind big. So my question is, where was the adjustment in terms of the shot selection for Josh Taylor? It wasn't just a case of, up the tempo, get on him. Yes, that's true that you needed to up the tempo, okay? He did need to do that. He did need to force Jack Catterall to fight more. But Catterall was very calm under pressure. He was very composed, and he was very physically strong on the inside. There are a couple of elements I didn't expect, because I thought Josh would look brilliant in this fight as long as he was healthy. The couple of elements that I didn't expect, I underestimated Jack Catterall's physical strength on the inside. I don't think he was the better fighter inside, but he was very strong. So when he was getting those underhooks, that wrestling method of holding, he was getting underhooks in on Josh Taylor, he was tying him up and pulling him in, and he looked like the physically stronger man. Josh, when he was moving him and wrestling him, at times he was throwing him around. But when it just came to stopping him work, just holding him, pinning him, Jack Catterall looked strong. And that I didn't expect for him to look quite as strong. The other thing I didn't expect was Jack Catterall to look so composed under pressure. I thought because he falls into shots sometimes when he does commit, that he will be engaging in inside fighting when he doesn't really need to, and that he wouldn't be as composed when he was under pressure, but he was. So shout out to Jack Catterall. You saw how disgusted he was. He walked away down the ramp, turned around, gave 2 fingers up to the ring because he was so disgusted at what had occurred. You saw I don't know if it's his wife, his girlfriend, his missus. Their whole family were delighted, man. They were jumping up and down. They knew they won that fight. This was not a close fight. I'm sorry. They knew they won that fight. You could see they both knew, the whole family, the whole team knew they won the fight. He should have been crowned the undisputed champion today. And I've never been a guy that believes that you absorb your opponent's CV just because you've taken over. So I don't necessarily think, for instance, in fact, I don't think that Kambosos is a top 10 pound for pound fighter. I don't think that Jack Catterall would have been tonight. It doesn't work like that. You've caused an upset, but you don't absorb everything they've achieved, right? So I'm not sitting here telling you Jack Catterall's new superstar of the sport. He's a brilliant boxer, very composed, and I'm really excited to see how he kicks on from here. You saw that Josh Taylor at the end of the fight was making out like he felt he won the fight, and he said, no, there's no need for a rematch. What's that all about? Is it because he's worried about the weight? I do think he should move up. He looked dead at the weight. He should definitely move up. But I'll say this, Josh Taylor should not have a rematch with Jack Catterall if he's struggling at the weight. If he is, he can win the fight if he adjusts and makes the right shot selections. This is not a case of Catterall exposing Josh Taylor. Josh is a brilliant fighter, but there were some poor choices tonight. That's my humble opinion. That's my take on it. Let me know what you think about the way the fight went. Let me know how you scored the fight. Thanks for watching, everyone. Chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.